Ratings for 2K26 have dropped, and it has Rockets fans scratching their heads a little bit of the ratings that some of these players got, including one rating that makes no sense at all. And we're going to get to all the details of those ratings right here on this episode of Rockets Digest. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Donovan Ricondo. And as always, we appreciate you joining us. And if you want to stay up to date on all of your Rockets content, even if it's video game related, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel right here, Rockets Digest. We have got you covered. Now, we are talking about NBA 2K26. This is a game that will release in September, but new details have come out that a lot of NBA fans aren't exactly excited for. I know they're doing a bunch of like meters now with like layups and rebounds and of course shots, but just making the game somewhat more realistic, but also just much more harder to play if you're a 2K player. So there's been a lot of mixed reviews on the game itself. But as always, as every year goes on, there's always some discourse about ratings, and this year is no different. Ratings have come out for a lot of the players, and there's always bound to be some sort of pushback and what the heck is this rating? Why is this guy rated higher than this guy? Blah blah blah. And before we get into pretty much our main story for this episode, right? Ratings, in the end, don't really matter. They don't dictate how good a player is compared to someone else. It's a video game. It really does not matter. But since we are on the subject, it's always worth exploring and talking about for a little bit just to see what the heck the people at 2K were thinking. So we're going to start off with these ratings right here for the Houston Rockets, and we're going to go over three that, quite frankly, the three most important that I thought did not make a lot of sense in terms of players being underrated in their 2K rating. So we're going to start off first with no one other than Kevin Durant, the brand new Houston Rocket, who, and this is just a nitpick according to James Piercy, but I saw it as well, and I was like, oh, he probably has a point here. Kevin Durant, a 93, which is his lowest rating since 2K17. After a strong 2024-2025 season, that's a bit puzzling. And as we all know, 93 is nothing to frown about. Kevin Durant is one of the best players in the NBA. And of course, he's on like kind of the waning of his career. He's probably going to only play 2-3 more years in the NBA. 93 is honestly not bad when you consider the longevity of this player and how most players his age are probably in the low 70s. So 93, not terrible, but maybe from the way that he has been playing, you could argue for a 94, 95 rating. But nevertheless, it's his lowest rating in 2K since that 17 version, almost 8, or at this point, 9 years ago. So there is that one right there. Kevin Durant coming in as our first one. Now for the second rating that has people kind of scratching their heads a little bit is this one right here that has to do with our bigs. As you see, Clint Capella in the new game has an 80 overall, which is odd when Steven Adams is rated 77. Fans who enjoy the My NBA mode will be frustrated when Capella unrealistically gets the rotational nod over Adams. And so that is a very interesting rating as well for 2K. I know these two guys were on two different teams last year, Capella with the Hawks, Adams with the Houston Rockets. And if you watch the Houston Rockets play last year, you know Steven Adams is so valuable to this team to be a 77. Again, do these ratings really matter? No, but it's kind of insulting a little bit when you have Steven Adams there at 77. He was a key part as to why they were even competing against the Golden State Warriors in that playoff series. He was instrumental in pushing that to a Game 7 and what should have been a series win if it was not for the lackluster Jalen Green performance. But the fact that Clint Capella is an 80 and Steven Adams is a 77 is kind of ridiculous when you consider it, considering that Capella is going to be Adams' backup this year. Adams is the guy that we've invested in. We re-signed him to that, I believe, $13 million deal. Clint Capella is more of our third big guy who we're going to have. And so very interesting rating there. Just an interesting Houston Rockets teammate versus teammate rating. But that is very, very peculiar when I look at these ratings and I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that's what we're rolling with, I guess. So not a lot of sense to be had there. But probably the biggest rating snub or whatever you want to call it, underrating, is Dorian Finney-Smith. He is by far one of the most criminally underrated players by the developers at 2K. And here is wire. Dorian Finney-Smith in the game is a 76 overall. And for context, Josh Okogie clocked in at 77. Let me repeat. Finney-Smith is a 76. Josh Okogie clocked in at 77. These are two guys we acquired this year in this year's offseason. We acquired DFS, who was one of our main priorities in terms of putting on our roster. And then kind of a more last-minute addition of kind of filling out this roster. Good player, don't get me wrong. Josh Okogie's a good, solid player to have on your depth. No, discredit to him and his talent. But this is also very peculiar. Like, it doesn't quite make sense. Last year, Finney-Smith shot 41.1% from deep. He's not the most fluid shooter off the dribble, but that accuracy alone ought to have enough to earn a B+ in three-point shooting. And also, he's one of the best defensive players in the offseason market this year. He's one of the best defensive players, quite frankly, in basketball. And he was able to do a lot of things for this team, or is going to be able to do a lot of things for this team, the way he was able to do a lot for the Lakers last season. So when you consider those two things, three-point percentage and also defense, that should put you higher than a 76. When you're arguably a player who can start for the Houston Rockets next season, let alone be their sixth man next year, 76 is a bit insulting for what is supposed to be one of the better teams in the NBA next year. And it really just doesn't make sense any way you break it down. Dorian Finney-Smith, his contract is a 4-year, $52 million contract. That is $13 million a year. When you compare that to the value of Okogie's contract, it is significantly more, as Okogie signed a 1-year, $3 million contract. He is getting paid $10 million more than Josh Okogie, yet he is still rated 1 overall point below. Again, does this really matter? No, not really. Dorian Finney-Smith doesn't need to have a higher rating. He's getting paid $10 million more, which I'm pretty sure he would rather have. But I just think it's all very, very interesting and slightly confusing from the developers at 2K to go ahead and make these ratings and just be like, yeah, this is what we're going to go with. Yeah, sure. Let's not double check this. Let's just go ahead. And this makes total sense. And I get it. There's going to be people that say, oh, this player should be 2 points higher. This player should be above this. And I get all that. It's the annual tradition when it comes to these release of the 2K ratings, and everyone's going to have a fit. I personally, I've stopped playing the game. I am not buying a 2K game every single year just to play with whatever slight upgrades they add to the game, whatever. But I do think it's worth just pointing out some of these things of how kind of crazy they are and how much they just don't make sense. It's kind of fun to poke at it a little bit, but it's quite insulting, right? 76 overall for DFS. Again, no discredit to Josh Okogie. Great to have him. Glad to have him here in Houston. But a 77 for him and a 76 for a DFS doesn't quite make sense. So those are the three that really caught my eye in terms of ratings. Kevin Durant, kind of nitpicky one, but still 93, lowest in 9 years. And then of course you have Steven Adams, Clint Capella. What's the deal with that? I don't know. Steven Adams is probably going to be. He's making more money than Clint Capella, and he's also going to play more minutes and more valuable of a player than Capella will be for the Rockets next season. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're all wrong in terms of that. And 2K is right this whole time. 2K apparently never gets anything wrong. So whatever. That's fine. But of course, that last one, DFS being a 76, is an absolute no-go. Quite honestly, I think he should be an 80s player, somewhere in those mid-80s. I don't think anywhere above an 85. I think 85 is kind of his peak in that aspect. But 76, quite insulting. But let me know in the comments what you think about these ratings and where you would rank each of these players if you had the chance to rank the overall for KD, for Clint Capella, for Steven Adams, and for Dorian Finney-Smith, and Josh Okogie. Where would you put all those guys if you had to rate them in an NBA video game? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you want to stay up to date on all your Rockets content, this is the channel for you. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button below. We're covering things all Houston Rockets this entire offseason. We're in a little bit of a low, so we're covering it all. We really are. We're still giving you this content, even if it's in a video game. Until next time, I'm your host, Donovan Ricondo. So long. Adios.